and gentlemen, welcome back. I hope you've enjoyed your break and your refreshments. We're about to get moving with our third session. So if you're still out there in the hall and can hear me, I would like to invite you to please join us here in the room. We have a very interesting, very profoundly relevant session coming up, another meat and potatoes session, as it were, focusing on industrial development in relations between Qatar and Germany. Now, because some of our panelists do need to leave a little early, they have planes to catch, we are going to conclude this session at 4 o'clock. So we'd like to get underway as quickly as we can. So if you're still coming back into the room, feel free to join us now. This session that we're about to focus on now will follow up on what we just did. We looked in the previous session at the financial sector in Qatar. In this sector, we're going to be looking at industrial development. But just before we get started, we have another film for you to give you just some brief insights, a brief overview of where industrial development stands at this point in relation to Qatar and Germany. So, here we go.
The state of Qatar is steadily moving forward in supporting and enabling the industrial sector and establishing solid bases for localization of various industries. In response to its immediate and future needs, gas will play a more important role in the future. The country announced the increase of LNG yearly production to about 100 million tons. The German company, RWE, is importing LNG from Qatar with up to 1.1 million tons per year under a 7.5-year agreement. Qatar also acquired large projects in Argentina by 30%, in partnership with major international companies, as well as other projects in North America. The industrial strategy aims at increasing the contribution of the manufacturing industry to gross national income from 9.5% in 2016 to 13% in 2022 by continuing to develop and support new industries. The country as well seeks self-sufficiency in 2022. The agricultural production will be through the establishment of production companies internally in the free zones and farms. Qatar formed a ministerial group to support and stimulate the private sector. It provided investment opportunities to the private sector with a total value of 26 billion riyals. These projects were divided between food security, construction, health, education, and logistics, as well as tourism and industry. Qatar provides rewarding incentives for industry, where the number of existing and registered industrial establishments reached about 800, with an investment of about 255 billion Qatari riyals. The number of employees in these establishments is about 100,000 workers and employees. The contribution of the transformative industry to GDP is estimated at 10%. The country products are exported to more than 100 countries. These priority projects are a result of supporting and motivating the private sector, which has proven its efficiency and ability to implement the projects put forward by the committee. Joining us to talk more in this session, His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Saleh Al-Sada, Minister of Energy and Industry. His Excellency Mr. Mohammed bin Abdullah Al-Rumaihi, Minister of Municipality and Environment. His Excellency Hans Joachim Fuchsau, Parliamentary State Secretary, Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Mr. Said Sharida Al-Kabi, CEO and Managing Director of QP. His Excellency, Mr. Ahmed Mohammed Al-Sayed, Chairman, Free Zone Authority.
First of all, let's give our panelists a warm welcome to the panel on industrial development. Thank you all for being here. Now, our last panelist there is a representative from the Qatar Free Zone Authority, and we have also prepared a very short film about that to give you an idea of what that's about, so you can help visualize it with the help of this, again, very short film before we begin our discussion, a film on the Free Zone Authority.
Located on the region's busiest shipping route, Qatar is perfectly positioned for international trade, with direct air and sea connections to Asia, Africa, and Europe. Qatar is becoming a leading destination for next-generation business models. Its thriving, knowledge-based economy has helped secure its place among the most competitive business environments in the world, an ideal destination for foreign investment. The country is already ranked #1 globally for its advantageous tax regime, and with real GDP set to grow over the coming years, the future looks bright. The past 4 decades have seen a 9-fold increase in Qatar's population to 2.7 million. The current political blockade by neighboring countries has only served to strengthen the nation's self-sufficiency, and strategic investment continues to accelerate. Qatar has already spent $33 billion on infrastructure projects, with new contracts to be awarded over the next 3 years, not least with the 2022 FIFA World Cup on the horizon. The national strategy, Vision 2030, is even more ambitious. Qatar is known as the world's leading supplier of liquefied natural gas and a leading player in aviation and sports and the media. The Qatar Free Zones Authority is establishing a cluster of free zones, including Ras Bafuntas, located beside Hamad International Airport, the best airport in the Middle East, and Al Houl, with direct access to Hamad Port, the world's biggest greenfield port development. Qatar Free Zones offer foreign investors 100% ownership, 0 customs duty and corporation tax, no individual income tax, quick building permits, and access to a skilled workforce. On the ground, free zones also provide fully serviced plots, dedicated security, hotel and retail facilities, as well as advanced broadband to ensure optimal connectivity. While Qatar welcomes investment in any sector, exciting opportunities already exist in logistics, e-commerce, food packaging, pharmaceuticals, and plastics. With an eye to the future, we're also focused on disruptive industries, such as renewable energy, power storage solutions, and artificial intelligence. Be part of the Qatar Free Zones initiative, with everything in place, from essential infrastructure and facilities to ease of shipping and customs. Your business can flourish as a truly global player in partnership with the Qatar Free Zones Authority.
And we will be learning a lot more about Qatar Free Zones when our discussion gets underway. Again, just a reminder, we are going to be concluding this session at 4 o'clock because a number of our panelists have to catch a plane and leave. So we're going to try to be as precise and concise as we can in our discussion. Now, just a quick outline of what we're going to be talking about over the next 45 minutes. It's industrial development with a stress on industrial. We'll be looking at Qatar's growth, of course, as a major energy supplier. We'll be looking at the role of oil and gas, of course, in the industrial development of not just Qatar, but also Germany. And this is where things really become interesting, I think, for many of the German investors in this room, business people. We're looking at the potential for possibly growing exports, LNG exports to Germany. There's been quite a bit in the news recently about that. But most importantly, we'll be looking at how Qatar and Germany can work together to grow industrial sectors on both sides. We'll be looking for opportunities for German investment in Qatar's industrial sector, but also at Qatar's investments in the German industrial sector, and with a special focus in this session on the development of Qatar's food manufacturing industry and opportunities there for German investment. The key word, of course, being food security at this point. So let's begin. And I would like to begin with His Excellency, Dr. Mohammed bin Saleh Al Sada. He's Minister of Energy and Industry, as you saw in this film. I'm sure he's a very familiar figure to many of you in this room. I would like to begin by asking you, Your Excellency, what is Qatar's role as a major supplier of LNG today? We know it's a leading position, but what plans does your country have for developing that, for building on that, and penetrating new markets?
Thank you, Terry. Very good afternoon to you all. Well, the story of the LNG is something we are all proud of. It took a vision and determination to develop the vast reserve of Qatar of natural gas. And Qatar took the move as a first mover in that sector, and they developed the LNG sector to the extent that Qatar is enjoying the first place as far as production and export of the LNG. But the story doesn't stop at there. Qatar has made the decision, His Highness the Emir made the decision to go further and expand the production and export of the LNG by another 30%. So which will come in line around 2024. It will take a lot of work at all sectors, especially with regard to financing and equipment suppliers, consultants, construction, etc. I'm sure German companies will be interested in that development. The idea, Terry, is utilize and monetize the reserve of gas in order to diversify the economy of Qatar. The vision of 2030, probably you heard about it a number of times today, calls for the diversification of economy as a main pillar. And we are utilizing the revenue out of the gas to diversify the economy. And one important sector is certainly the industrial sector, to contribute to the economy of Qatar and the diversification of Qatar, in addition to the other services sector. That's why through the short movie you just presented, everybody noticed that His Excellency, the Prime Minister, took the lead, and he's leading a very efficient team to incentivize the private sector, especially in the industrial side, so that we increase the industrial base and have the contribution of the industry growing steadily and contributing more and more into the economy. We took steps, and we think that the diversification is a journey and not a destination. And I give you an example where it is a journey. A few years back, the contribution of non-hydrocarbon sector in our economy was merely 40%. It reached almost 60%, but the journey is not yet finished. It's going to continue.
Your Excellency, forgive me if I follow up with the question. I was just wondering again about what you'll do with that capacity. If you're going to expand the capacity by 30% in terms of your gas and oil production or development, where is that going to go? How are you going to tap new markets? That was really my question. How are you going to go about accessing new markets with this additional capacity?
The way we look at the development of the gas production and export capacity is that this is a strategic commodity supporting the development of the economies of our customers, and it is highly demanded due to its environmental advantage, availability, versatility of it. Now, we expected, the world expected, in fact, everybody expected the growth is 4 to 5% as far as demand is concerned per year. But what happened was that was almost doubled last year. And this year we expect it to be also additional 10% or so. People are capitalizing on the environmental advantage, availability, affordability of the LNG, and we are going into the market by 2024 or so, timely to bridge the gap between the supply and demand.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Now, I mentioned food security, switching gears here completely, but also tied to the idea of diversity, which you just outlined. I would like to move on to our second speaker, His Excellency Mr. Mohammed bin Abdullah Al Rumaihi. He's the Minister of Municipality and Environment in Qatar, and food security is an issue that has gained great relevance during the past year and a half for obvious reasons in Qatar. It's universally important, but it has indeed gained some urgency in Qatar recently. What role can companies play? And we're talking about the private sector here mainly. What role can companies play in supporting your country's food development strategy?
Well, thank you very much. Please let me start by welcoming everybody on my title as chairman of the organizing committee of this very successful forum. So thank you, everybody here, our friends from Germany and from Qatar. The food strategy, it is something that happens a long time ago, but let's say after the blockade, everybody in Qatar, they put themselves up front into serious business and try to produce the maximum they can do. So at all sectors, we had produced 100% on our capacity. So that was very important for Qatar to cover what was cut from our neighbors or from international markets. But what is new in Qatar, that we just finished our food security strategy study, and now we are going to implement it. So what is the food security strategy in Qatar is to make available enough foods for all the populations, all the Qatari citizens, nationals or expat. As you know, it's a figure around the 3 million. And the Qatari, we are a smaller number than the 3 million. We are about 300,000. So the food security strategy will cover all these areas. Our food security strategy rely on 4 sectors. One is our national product. Second, international trade. Third, national markets. And fourth is national reserve, strategic reserve, our national strategic reserve for food. So this strategy will cover about 14 sectors, 14 areas of interest on the economy, as you ask how the private sector or the companies can support this. We are going to cover 24 products, that is strategic product necessary for the country. These 24 products will be given to the private sector and the government institutions to cooperate together to create a partnerships where we will mostly, let's say, double our capacity on storage or making availability for the market. And this double will go up to mostly 70% of our consumptions. So the amount we are going to invest on this strategic food security program is about €1 billion just to re-establish the food security program and our reserve, because we have actual reserve, actual production, and actual market, but mostly the private sector is a major player in this, and they have done it perfectly within the blockade story. When this happens in June 2017, just after 1 month, this private sector was at the point that he could sustain and he could provide the country with enough food or the necessary food security. Now this program is very important because where this money will go now, it's international importations to create a reserve. That reserve will go up from, let's say, 100% to 125 to 200%, depending on every product. So this area also, if we talk about €1 billion, this area will cover 65% will be invested from the private sector, and only 35% will be invested from the government. So there is an area of partnership on this, how to create our reserve. The companies will benefit from importations, from creating a storage, rather, let's say, chilled storage or of freezer, deeper freezer storage, or even dry or canned storage, which is very necessary. So we have to increase this area of storage with about 25%. Also, we have to take into account what the government has created in Hamad Port. And as we are talking now about the free zone, in Hamad Port, we created a facility that can store for 6 months wheat and sugar and oil for all the Qatari population. Okay. So that is very important, but it is not what we are going to invest extra. So for the market now, we have an extra investment going on.
Very exciting time, I think, in terms of the strategy. We'll be hearing some more from you in just a moment, getting into more specifics as it might relate to German investors. But I'd like to bring in, at this point, His Excellency Hans-Joachim Fuchtel. He's a Parliamentary State Secretary in the Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture here in Germany. He's going to be speaking with us in German. If you don't speak German, then feel free to put your headphones on at this point. It's going to be translated into English and Arabic. Mr. Fuchtel, I would like to begin by talking to you a little bit about where Germany is now in terms of its exports of food and where it could be going. Germany, of course, is world-renowned as an exporter of industrial goods, manufactured goods. But what about food? Do you see opportunities for increasing the volume of food exported to Qatar, whether it's for local consumption or for perhaps re-export, if they're going to fulfill this vision as we've just heard it laid out to us?
Ja, es ist auf jeden Fall möglich, dass noch mehr Entwicklung entsteht. Wir möchten zunächst gratulieren, dass es zu dem MOU kam zwischen den Ländern. Das ist eine Voraussetzung, dass wir darauf aufbauen können. Und es ist wenig bekannt, dass Deutschland, was Agrarexporte betrifft, mit 73 Milliarden immerhin an dritter Stelle auf der Welt steht. Und dazu kommen dann nochmal 8,5 Milliarden bezüglich Landtechnik. Also insoweit sind wir breit aufgestellt und wir können also mit der Strategie sehr gut zusammenkommen auf dem Gebiet Lebensmittel. Wir können gut zusammenkommen auf dem Gebiet Landtechnik. Wir können gut zusammenkommen auch in einem anderen wichtigen Bereich, nämlich Tier- und Pflanzenzucht als solches. Das Volumen Agrarexport aus Deutschland nach Katar belief sich 2017 auf 62 Millionen Euro. Mit der Strategie, die hier dargestellt wurde, lässt sich das sicher gewaltig noch vergrößern. Es ist ja eine kaufkräftige und konsumfreudige Gesellschaft in Katar, eine wichtige Grundlage. Und trotz aller Bemühungen eines höheren Grads der Selbstversorgung wird es notwendig sein, dass Importe dies ergänzen. Und ich habe jetzt gehört, und das ist sicher wichtig, der Markt als Katar als solches ist mit 2,5 Millionen Menschen ja etwas beschränkt. Der Botschafter hat mir berichtet, man arbeitet an einem Hub, um die gesamte Region stärker zu bedienen. Und ich kann es Ihnen natürlich klar sagen, dass dies dazu führt, dass dann natürlich auch ein größeres Interesse hier kommen wird. Und das kann ein zusätzliches Sprungbrett sein für ein erheblich größeres Volumen in der Area der Welt. Ich möchte allerdings auch zwei Herausforderungen nicht hier verschweigen. Die erste Herausforderung ist, dass deutsche Unternehmen in der gesamten Region und gerade auch in den Nachbarstaaten engagiert sind. Und es entspricht dem unternehmerischen Kalkül, dass sie wirtschaftliche Chancen und politische Risiken natürlich stets sorgfältig gegenseitig abwägen. Und insoweit ist es ein starkes Interesse, da auch von Unternehmerseite, dass es politisch stabile und unter sich eng vernetzte Verhältnisse in der Region gibt. Ja, es ist Grundvoraussetzung für Handel und Investitionen. Und ein zweiter Punkt, die Transparenz der Regularien. Das möchte ich Ihnen sehr ans Herz legen, darauf zu achten. Das Stichwort heißt Halal-Zertifizierung und das ist wichtig, dass das für die relevanten Güter auch so transparent gemacht wird, dass wir da klare Bedingungen haben. Und ich spreche hier auch im Namen der Exporteure, die das uns ausdrücklich aufgetragen haben, dies hier anzusprechen und dafür zu werben, dass wir hier keine ungerechtfertigten Handelshemmnisse mehr haben. Und wenn das geleistet wird, dann kann da sicher sehr viel mehr geschehen.
Okay, so there's actually a great deal that Germany can contribute to this particular area, it sounds like. Very good. Our next speaker again is someone who's not a stranger to anyone who is looking at what's going on in Qatar's business sector, its industrial sector. This is Mr. Saad Sharid Al-Kaabi. He's president and CEO of Qatar Petroleum. Many people know it simply as QP. Now, QP, Qatar Petroleum is, one could say, it's the backbone of the Qatari economy. In itself, it's such a significant player. There's, of course, much interest in the growth plans of Qatar Petroleum. What do you see, Mr. Saad Sharid Al-Kaabi, what do you see as the new and emerging markets, coming back to what we began with, the new and emerging markets for Qatar Petroleum?
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me on this panel. The answer to your question is, first of all, QP's growth strategy, our growth strategy, we're producing about 4.8 million barrels of oil equivalent today. We're going to grow to about 6.5 million barrels oil equivalent per day within the next 8 years. That entails two parts. One is the local growth in Qatar. So we've announced, as His Excellency mentioned, the growth of 30% of our energy capacity, going from 77 million to 100 million tons per annum. We're well on our way in the engineering of the onshore, offshore. We're actually in the tendering phase for all the drilling, for all the development wells of the development plan, and we should be in production, God willing, by end of 23, early 24. So on the upstream part and the LNG, that's all well on its way. On the growth internally in the petrochemical sector, we have announced the largest ethane cracker in the Middle East that we will be building in Ras Laffan, which will basically be a springboard for the growth of our petrochemical sector and some of the further downstream business that we're planning. Regarding the business community and the involvement in that area, of course, we will be rolling out a plan of some of the businesses that we think that we can introduce to the private sector before the end of this year. Some of it will be SMEs in the industrial side and some in the procurement, logistics, and other areas. So for something like that, there would be a partnership that could be formed by some of the German companies with local companies in Qatar. So that will be an exciting, I think, area for the businesses. But what I described in the growth plan, of course, entails having a lot of technologies, a lot of buying, some of the technologies that are German, a lot of construction that will happen. So that will have a lot of growth for the business community and spearheading some of the economic growth that will come down as 2022 construction and development basically tapers down before the event itself. Regarding our international growth, as you may have witnessed, we have a strategy, as I just mentioned, growing in a big way in the upstream business. So we have ventured into Cyprus. We are now in Mexico, in Brazil, in Argentina, in the US, in Europe. We have a terminal in Italy, a terminal in the UK. We are supplying almost the entire Europe with LNG. Regarding the new market and your question, the market development is something very key. Some countries that are deprived of funds and need infrastructure development to receive the gas, such as some of the Indian subcontinent, Bangladesh, and some of these areas, Pakistan and so on, where we actually went in and supported in some of these investments and requirements. And there are the more developed countries such as Germany, where we're talking to Uniper and RWE in supplying LNG to these markets. And Uniper has their own terminal that they're planning. RWE just signed 2 days ago with German LNG supply agreement. So we're working very hard to really introduce gas into the market. And the gas is the best fossil fuel known to mankind, and it's only set to grow. And when you talk about gas requirement for automotives, or when you talk about electric that everybody's excited about, that also needs gas to generate the power. So I think we're in good shape.
So it sounds like a very international strategy indeed, with the Americas represented as well as Europe and other regions in the world that are developing, but it involves not just exporting, but also building the capacity to absorb those exports. Very interesting indeed. Thank you. And our final speaker, you've already seen some of what our final speaker has been involved in, namely the Free Zones Authority. There should be an S on that because it's multiple zones, it seems. His Excellency, Mr. Ahmed Al-Said, he's the State Minister and Chairman of the Free Zones Authority. Is it free zone or free zones?
It is free zones, so we have two currently. Thank you, Terry, for
anyway, but that's not my question.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for being here, but my question being rather, why the free zones? What is the purpose of these free zones? What's your strategy with them in relation to Qatar beyond what we've already seen in the film? What do they offer?
Thank you, Terry, for allowing me to participate here and to be one of the supporters for this event. Actually, the story of the free zone come as a conclusion of different stage of development that the state of Qatar went through. We went through a different stage. We built our oil industry and then gas industry, and then we came and put our 2030 vision, and we work on our infrastructure. And the 2022 also, that was an event that will happen in between. We built our sovereign wealth fund, which invests everywhere, and we continue to diversify our income by doing that. And we came at the stage that we invest all this wealth and this asset around us, and in national champion, and in top educational platform also in the country. And that's a very normal result to move to a more knowledge-based economy. So, and therefore, the idea of the free zone come to utilize all these assets around you and to put it at work to continue support the growth of the economy. And that's what we have, and that's how we connect to the world. We are cash-rich country, but we are looking for knowledge. We are looking for white-collar people. We are looking for partnership with a global blue-chip institution. And, to open the country for doing business. You've been hearing the previous two sessions where different senior officers talk about what Qatar did and how we react to the world, and how is the blockade play as really interesting event to re-improve ourselves and to, as a new start. We already advanced, but that also make us look at what we need more. And, the free zone, it's a different zone. It will be different focus in terms of industries focus, and it will have a special regulatory, which is very international regulatory, international court, and will open them up for doing business. And when you come to the zone, you are partner with Qatar Inc. So you are not alone. You are not we are not a wait and see strategy. No, we are actively approaching the whole government, the whole national champion, from economy ministry, from energy ministry, from finance ministry, from Qatar Petroleum, from Qatar National Bank, from Qatar Airways, and others, to be frank with you, is all participating to support this vision and to conclude a partnership with international firm. So that's in a nutshell.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That fits perfectly into the Vision 2030 plans, as far as I can tell, in terms of diversification. And now, with Qatar facing the kinds of pressures that it is, the interest in that diversification, particularly the knowledge-related industries, coming into focus. SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises. Here in Germany, they are extremely important. They are the backbone of the German economy, if we're talking about backbones again. Small and medium-sized industries are something that Qatar is also, we're hearing it on this panel, already beginning to look at by the nature of the industries that are being developed. We all know that Qatar is working on diversifying its economy and growing its non-oil revenues. What direction are those plans headed in, Your Excellency, Dr. Mohammed bin Saleh Al Sada? What direction are those plans headed in, especially with regard to small and medium-sized enterprises?
Well, we are in Germany, and it's the heartland of SMEs. And it is an appropriate forum to shed light on our strategy and perhaps create interest for the well-developed SMEs to come and join us in developing that sector. I would like to quote His Highness the Emir. Once he said, the blockade is a blessing in disguise. And indeed, if you look at what happened over the first year of the blockade, we had plants going online, starting twice the previous year and almost more than the previous 2 years. So the acceleration has been great during the blockade. Not only when we talk about the number is not enough and it doesn't give the picture, because in a few days' time, we will recognize those small and medium industries who increase their output by 300-400 and some up to 500 times the capacity before the blockade, simply because the demand has increased and they geared up their plants to double and triple and more than that into our market. Now, I would like to say that the knowledge-based, capital-intensive type of industry is our aim. Nevertheless, we take into consideration the market requirement. Now, we are moving parallel in 3 areas. One, in the industrial areas which are owned and managed directly by the government. We have another entity which is called economic zones, which is semi-governmental. Again, they are moving ahead. The third is the free zone, and His Excellency Ahmed Al-Sayed shed light on that, which we regard it to be, if you like, something independent. Now, they are going in parallel. They all give incentives, but there are common denominators that we are tax-friendly. In fact, in the case of a free zone, there's no tax, obviously. The rest can offer up to 10 years without income tax. The raw materials, finished materials, in and out, are tax-free. Equipment for the plants, tax-free. The funds, our economy is totally free. Funds in and out are free. There are so many other incentives that we are very competitive when it comes to feedstocks, from energy and feedstocks, water, power, etc. So all of these incentives, they are applied on these three areas of industrial sectors, but different ones can offer more of such incentives.
Thank you so much. That sounds very promising, very enticing, I'm sure, to many people in this room when they hear tax-free. I think that makes their ears ring in a very positive way. Thank you so much for that overview. We're a little tight for time, I see, to finish this session at 4 o'clock, which is the target for many of you who have to leave. So I would ask the rest of our panelists to try to keep their answers fairly brief. Your Excellency, Mr. Mohammed bin Abdullah al-Rumayhi, how might Qatar's, again, sticking with food security here, how might Qatar's food security and agriculture, the agriculture sector in general, let's put it in that way, benefit from German industry and expertise? What is specific about the relationship between Germany and Qatar that could feed into this particular area?
Well, I think Germany, they have a very important place in the production crops, production of different livestock, production, importation sometime, but you have a technology. So there is know-how transfer to the Qatari side, training maybe. We can acquire a lot of machinery from Germany, for sure. We can talk about huge machines here, but in Qatar, we can have the best small machine from Germany as well. We can also rely on greenhouses technology, because that's a very important sector to increase our productions. And as you know, we are aiming to increase by 100%. That's a big amount to realize within the next 4 years. So on this, we need a technology. We need also genetically modified maybe seeds. We need some expertise in seasons, some expertise how to use the water the best way, how to purify the water rather from sewage system or from desalination plants, how to increase our water reservoirs. You know, so it is some areas that really we needed a lot of training also. And there is, I visit one of the risk assessment center here yesterday just to see how your scientists look to this subject and see it, because we are no agriculture country. And Qatar now will have to turn it to agriculture country, because in our food security program or strategy, there is also national production. So that national production should be really reinforced and supported. We need also a lot of medicines, let's say, for rather medicals to treat the insects and to treat the plants from one side, and also to protect our livestock by vaccines, because we are in a desert, we are in a very unnormal areas to grow animals. And as our aim is really to grow for the next year, I am talking for the business sector, is to grow 250 sheep feeding farms. So that is very important. And from the other side, we have to create a border farms as well to feed these animals, you know. It is very important to see this, the Germany as a good partner and a very knowledgeable partner and capable of doing things. You know, as I visit here, we discover things, and I invite our private sector, your private sector, to stand together and try to bring the market and bring our target to be realized. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. It sounds like there are indeed a lot of opportunities there. When it comes to food, of course, the food industry, it's not just about food. There's a lot that plays into it in order to support it. Interesting for German small and medium-sized enterprises, for sure. Hans-Joachim Fuchtel, Qatar is determined to become more self-sufficient. That has become clear during the past year and a half, at least, particularly during the last year and a half, not least in the food industry. Do you think that German companies specializing in agriculture technology can play a role in helping Qatar to develop its food and agriculture sector, maybe related to what the previous speaker just said?
Ja, ich lade alle ein, nach Deutschland zu kommen. und sich umzuschauen. Und Sie werden sehen, welche Qualität besteht, gerade bei Vorleistungsgütern, bei Investitionsgütern. Und wir haben da ja auch eine gewisse Reputation. Ich nenne nur noch mal Tiergenetik und Zuchtvieh. Ich nenne auch Stalltechnik und Landmaschinen. Auch der ganze Bereich Logistik ist sehr ausgeprägt in Deutschland. Und ich möchte mal sagen, wir haben im letzten Jahr 300 Kühe geliefert nach Katar. Das hat ja viel Öffentlichkeit erzeugt, aber ist bei einem Bedarf von 25.000 noch etwas ausbaufähig. Um da jetzt mal in Kürze zu sagen, wohin eben hier der Weg gehen könnte. Und wir können gute Qualität bieten. Der Minister hat ein Institut besucht. Ich kann Ihnen nur empfehlen, solche Reisen öfters zu machen. Und wir wollen Sie überzeugen, dass Sie da einen guten Weg gehen. Es geht um Precision Farming, es geht um Bau von Gewächshäusern, es geht um Logistik wie Kühlketten oder Lagerstätten und es geht um die Verarbeitung und Veredelung von Produkten. Gerade dort ist ein Riesenmarkt und den sollten wir gemeinsam mal erforschen. Katar hat Nahrungsmittelmaschinen importiert im Wert von 43 Millionen. Deutschland war mit 10% beteiligt. Auch hier kann man sich vorstellen, dass solche Gespräche noch weiterführend sind. Und das soll ein kleiner Werbeblock sein. Wir verstehen Ihre Veranstaltung so, dass das ein Klopfen an der Tür war. Und nun ist die Tür aufgegangen und jetzt geht es darum, dass man hindurchgeht und dazu gibt es sehr viele Möglichkeiten der Kooperation und wir laden Sie ein, davon Gebrauch zu machen.
Sounds very promising. The pictures of these Holstein cows in Qatar have, I think, gone through the world. There's a lot more that can be done beyond that, it sounds like. Thank you so much. Petrochemical projects, getting back to the background of Qatar's economy, but as we realize everything is related, the development of the other aspects of the economy is very much dependent on the development of petrochemical projects. There are many of them in the outline. This is Saad Al-Kabi. There's a massive gas development expansion project underway. You've already outlined a little bit about that. Can you tell us about the actual status of these projects, not just the one you mentioned, but what opportunities are there for German companies, potentially at least, for German partnerships perhaps, in helping to drive these projects forward?
I think the partnership in Germany, I think, are twofold. One is in Qatar itself, because there is a lot of technology that we use and a lot of licenses that we use that are German versus other technologies, and they have been preferred in many technologies that we use, whether it's in the petrochemical sector or in the gas sector, and a lot of the treatment facilities, equipment, panels, a lot of things that are high-tech, if you will, that are German. So there are a lot of opportunities there, and I think there are a lot of opportunities in the SME sector, where we want a lot of startups for continuity of supply for the oil and gas sector, whether it's in the logistics, the whole supply chain for the long term. And I think, a lot of the good companies can actually couple with partners in Qatar to have good business, whether it is for the oil and gas sector, petrochemicals, or other sectors. And, the free zone is a very good platform for that. Regarding the partnership that we could do with the German companies, outside, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking, to supply gas into RWE here through a terminal, but we're also working on the LNG trucking and looking at going through the river with some of the barges, and LNG into the sector, and looking into investing further into the downstream with the objective of monetizing our gas, and really it's finding a new market for our gas, and goes back to your market development point of view. So there are a lot of opportunities for partnership with German companies. We've had good partnerships, and I think we can build more in the future.
Thank you very much. And finally, we will wrap up with this question because we are indeed hitting it at 4 o'clock now. Your Excellency, Mr. Ahmed Al-Sayed, again, getting back to the free zones, the free trade zones, free zones, I use them synonymously. What's the main focus of them at the moment? Because this is a fairly new phenomenon in Qatar, and I'm just wondering where they are right now. What's your main focus?
Yeah. Thank you. We are finalizing our infrastructure and we are building some logistic, and therefore the main focus will be for the next phase is to build the logistic and to invest in the logistic, and therefore we are welcoming German company to come and participate there. And I just want to say one thing. You know, the opportunity which available today, it might not be available tomorrow. And, you know, the first comer, of course, will be, you know, enjoy the more incentives that we put around. And in addition to the logistic, which is crucial for the other business, we are open also to different industries. We are open also to some downstream chemicals and disruptive technology and engineered plastic, and you know any other ideas that you know our friends in Germany here looking for. We can facilitate. We can be a front office to grow toward the Middle East and toward Asia. We are in an area that's surrounded by 2 billion of population, and we are offering you a very advanced base to enjoy, you know, a top quality service. From top infrastructure, we are one of the best or the best airport in the Middle East, one of the best port globally, and top modern infrastructure, and you know a very advanced regulatory system. We had bet on the German industries and market, and I personally was involved in as a previously run the QIA on investing in blue chip German companies, and now it is time to even work together, and we are welcoming German company to come to invest in Qatar and to run their business globally from Qatar. Thank you.
Thank you, and I want to thank you all explicitly, not just for giving us so many powerful insights into the topic that we've been exploring, but you've been also very disciplined with your time. I want to really thank you for that. A warm round of applause for all of our panelists. We are going to wrap up the session a little early right now. Thank you, gentlemen, all. I know that some of you have to jump up and run straight to the airport. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Just one brief announcement. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, just your attention for just one moment, one additional moment. I have one brief announcement. It concerns memoranda of understanding. We have Nasser bin Khaled International. It's a subsidiary of Nasser. Bin Khaled and Sons, they're pleased to announce the signing of a memorandum of understanding with the Erhardt and Partner Group, EPG, from Germany for the establishment of a $500 million state-of-the-art, fully automated mega logistics park to fulfill the requirements of the growing logistics needs of Qatar. EPG is Germany's leader in smart logistics and warehousing, serving the most prestigious clients in Europe, including DHL, Rossmann, Hellmann, Fiege, Pilatus, Volkswagen, Bolmag, and others. His Excellency Sheikh Nawaf, chairman of NBK Group, stated that the signing of this MOU with Marco Erhardt, president of EPG, brings to Qatar the latest technology in computerized logistics, making Qatar a world-class logistics hub and strengthening the relations between Qatari and German companies. Again, a memorandum of understanding establishing a $500 million state-of-the-art logistics park. Thank you very much.